Hi, my name is Dory Goikman. I am a divorce attorney and mediator. I'm licensed to practice law in California, New York, and New Jersey. And my practice is primarily with mediation and amicable divorce. So we're doing this Reddit AMA, and I've gotten some great questions. I'm taking them one at a time because it's a little bit slow to respond on video. But anyway, on to the question for today. Okay, so this question is from which entrepreneur? Okay, so this question is from which entrepreneur 565. Hi, hello. Thank you for making space for this discussion. I'd love to hear about what makes a reputable mediator and red flags to look out for when choosing a mediator. Also, what does it look like in your practice when one party backs out of the mediation process? For context, my soon-to-be ex paid $5K to a mediator and then told me a month afterward who it was. I spoke to the mediator, then did my research and saw a number of red flags, including a notice on the state bar website that he'd been asked to stop practicing law without a license in the next county over. I expressed my concern to the ex and the mediator and haven't heard back in a few weeks. This feels like it might not be the usual way things are done when one party backs out, but it's my first time. So yeah, this is a really interesting question. I'm so glad you asked because a lot of the world of mediation is really secretive, right? And it's kind of happening behind closed doors or in a way that people don't know about, potentially by private contracts. And the answer to the question depends a little bit because sometimes there is a court-ordered mediation and the parties have already, let's say, stipulated to using a certain mediator. And I'm not sure if that's the case here, right? Sometimes there's no court order and we're just starting at the beginning of the process, and it's really up to the parties to decide, okay, what mediator are we comfortable with? And then once you do that, you might sign a contract where if you do back out, you might have some sort of penalty or potentially even lose all of the retainer. So what would dictate the terms of that contract is kind of interesting because technically mediation is not law. However, there are mediators that mediate within their law practice, and they are lawyers. And I think arguably those mediators, at the very least, would be bound by the same ethical rules that apply to law retainers, I would think. I mean, this is all really a gray area, right? So in terms of law retainers, depending on what state you're in, it might not be allowed to have, let's say, a non-refundable retainer. This is really varies based on local practice, or you might be allowed to have a non-refundable retainer, but it has to be phrased in a very specific manner. So this is going to your question, presumably about like, can I get my money back? Like, what's going on? I'm not happy with this mediator. I would say it really depends on your circumstances. I know that that's a really typical thing to hear from an attorney, but it really does, right? So it depends on, okay, have you signed a contract? Were you privy to this agreement, right? Are you court ordered for whatever reason to go to this specific mediator? And if that were the case, it would probably be that you stipulated or agreed in a court order to go to this specific mediator. And if not, then basically it's a matter of contract, right? Did we sign and agree to use this mediator? Now, if it's a matter of contract and then you later find out things that you're not comfortable with, does that, void that underlying contract? My guess is if it's written by an attorney, they probably write it in a way to most effectively protect themselves. So it's hard to say. Really have to know all the details of kind of what you found. A couple of things that I'm curious about to learn more about in your question. So you say that your spouse paid $5,000 to the mediator and then told you a month afterwards who it was. Normally, this is a both of you decision, right? So you should have been privy to that agreement. And if you weren't, then I don't see how you're a party to that contract. Like I said, unless there was some circumstance I don't know about, like, for example, you've already been court ordered and then maybe she just paid for it and it's been out of community funds, something like that, or marital funds. The notice on the state bar website that had been asked to stop practicing law without a license in the next county over. I mean, I don't know enough about this. I mean, of course, any kind of notice is something that you should pay attention to. county over, I mean, normally law is licensed by state. So I'm just curious. I mean, maybe it works differently in your state, but I'm curious where that notice is coming from, because normally it would come from the state bar, and then the county bars are usually these local voluntary associations, and then going to the question of, practicing without a license, normally that's a statewide question. If there was some county notice, I'm curious as to what they might be. And then what does it mean to be practicing without a license? I would think that either it would be someone who never was an attorney who represented themselves as an attorney, which would be a huge problem, right? It could be someone who is an attorney who somehow let their licensure lapse by not paying a fee. But normally, even that, I think it would be more reflected as some kind of late fee or late attorney registration rather than practicing without a license, unless things had gotten so far that their license was actually taken away. So yeah, no, I mean, that definitely piques my curiosity, and I would at the very least classify it as a yellow flag. In terms of choosing a mediator, the process really varies a lot, because a lot of times there are mediators who they just work with attorneys, the attorneys choose them, you trust your attorney to choose the mediator, and you never really have interaction with them before the process. The way that I run it in my practice, where I work with a lot of represented parties as well as unrepresented parties, I always give an opportunity for a consultation or at least a discovery call to make sure both parties are comfortable with me as a mediator. I think it's very important for both parties to have buy-in into the mediation process, which I think also includes the mediator and the mediation style. But that is not necessarily a sentiment that's shared across the industry. A lot of people might consider it inappropriate to have contact with the mediator ahead of the mediation, just for concerns over bias, I would suppose. My thought is, my goal is to work with the both of you to negotiate a settlement. So we all need to establish trust in each other. And if you don't trust me as a mediator, I don't see why we would go into this process at the outset. But yes, mediators can vary, right? So there are mediators that might just be assigned through a court list. There are mediators that you might stick to through your attorneys. In that case, I would trust your attorney to do the research ahead of time, but certainly you should feel free. Maybe the mediator won't speak with you directly, depending on their policies. You should feel free to at least contact the office and talk to the office, ask them questions. Okay, what are the procedures here? How does this all work? I'm concerned about this notice. What does it mean? And kind of see what you get. And of course, the best thing for you to do would be to hire an attorney and then speak to your attorney about your concerns about the mediator, because that's the person who really will most closely examine the specific circumstances of what's going on here. And I think you're very right to be suspicious and concerned. I think who your mediator is and your entire team at the outset can really have an enormous impact on the outcome of your case. So I think you're doing the right thing by investigating it and thinking about this. So yeah, the best way to do that would be, have an attorney assist you with the specifics of your situation and advise you. So yeah, thank you for the question. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you.